I'm Professor Tamas from the University of Westminster, and I'm leading a research center here, which is called the Research Center for Parallel Computing. Our very specific research area is high performance computing and cloud computing. And in that notion, we have been involved in the Cloudifacturing project. Inside Cloudifacturing, I'm responsible for the application experiments. So those who will submit successful proposals will, as a kind of primary contact point, will work with me and my team because we are leading at coordinating the application experiments in Cloudifacturing.
Okay, thank you, Tamas. Yeah, my name is Stork. I'm professor at the Technical University Darmstadt, and I'm head of the department at the Fraunhofer Institute for Computer Graphics Research, heading a group in interactive engineering technologies, and our major research areas are geometric and physical modeling, developing solvers ourselves, especially with a focus on GPU, so general purpose GPU computing. And in Cloudifacturing, I am the coordinator of the overall project. Tamas and we are sharing responsibilities of the overall together with other colleagues from the core partners. And yes, I welcome all of you to this webinar where we like to introduce you to the Cloudifacturing project, its open calls team, and the opportunities involved with our open call, or with our open calls. And today we are talking about the second and the final open call within Cloudifacturing. So I'd like first to give you a small overview of what are the 4 takeaway messages today. Before talking about Cloudifacturing in detail, we will talk a little bit about the so-called I4MS ecosystem. And this gives you a bit of background information and background knowledge of the political motivation for the European Commission to start Cloudifacturing and other projects that have this open call scheme, and what they'd like to achieve in terms of supporting especially small and medium-sized enterprises with ICT technology in the manufacturing area. Then we talk about how you can benefit from Cloudifacturing and what others already have achieved by collaborating with us, and collaboration with other experiments is ongoing. And then probably the most important bit is how you can participate in the open call, what is needed to provide a proposal, how do we support you in preparing those proposals, and what's next, and how you can interact with our DIHs, the Digital Innovation Hubs. So there is certainly a lot of new terminology to you. Please don't hesitate to ask later on what these 3-letter acronyms may mean. Okay, Cloudifacturing and the I4MS ecosystem. So I4MS is a program that has been started by the European Commission, and I4MS stands for ICT, so Information and Computation Technology, Innovation for Manufacturing SMEs, is small and medium-sized enterprises. So what the European Commission wants to achieve is the multitude of European manufacturing SMEs with ICT technology to generate information out of the knowledge that is around across Europe in different competence centers that are mastering ICT technologies, in our case especially modeling physical phenomena, simulating them based on clouds and HPC resources. And so bring real innovation to your processes, your manufacturing processes especially, but also the development processes for manufacturing purposes. So, as I already mentioned, the program is designed to help SMEs in the manufacturing sector, and the EC is co-funding these activities. So SMEs or large companies, they get a certain co-fund from the European Commission if they apply successfully with their proposals to the open calls. Open calls not just issued by Cloudifacturing, but also by many other projects that run under the umbrella of I4MS. And that already gives you kind of an indicator that if you participate in the Cloudifacturing open call, you're not just participating in Cloudifacturing, you will have a chance also to access the whole network of companies and institutions involved in the I4MS program. And these are now more than 100 entities, more than several hundred entities actually. So this is also a kind of entrance to this ecosystem. And what we have received in terms of feedback from SMEs, for SMEs, it's really helpful to be part of this network and yeah, to generate cross-border collaborations, get to know new companies, try to build up on that, and yeah, find new opportunities to work across Europe. So there is a lot of expertise, and we think it is an opportunity to expand your network for you to benefit from this network. Well, so far about I4MS, and as I said, I4MS amongst other projects is also a framework under which the Cloudifacturing project has been started, and Cloudifacturing aims. Somebody has to mute the microphone, otherwise we have this feedback loop. Okay, thank you. Cloudifacturing wants to cloudify production engineering for achieving predictive digital manufacturing. So what is the mission? It is about optimizing production processes and the producibility of your products using cloud-based and HPC-based modeling and simulation technology, meaning running many simulations to achieve an optimum product or process design based on geometric and physics models, leveraging online factory data and advanced data analytics. So that's an important part of our experiments and of our call. So we are not just interested in forward-directed simulation experiments, but we would like to complement these simulations by leveraging sensor data coming from the factory, from the real machines, validating these simulation results and showing that this has really made a kind of a quantum leap to you in terms of optimizing and contributing to your competitiveness and or resource efficiency. So this is all tailored towards manufacturing SMEs, ultimately fostering the idea and the vision of factories of the future, 4.0, and the circular economy. And what you see, many keywords, most of them are already mentioned, just as big data and cloud computing, modeling and simulation. Also, automation is an important term here. So, in short, application experiments to you shall provide an opportunity to become more competitive, to test things that are not easy to test in your usual like day-to-day processes. So this gives you a framework of trying out something innovative, but not in terms of some risky research, very applied, likely to show real benefits at the end of the experiment. So how are these experiments organized, and which experiments are we talking about? Well, in Cloudifacturing, we aim at running 21 application experiments at least. We are now talking about the second open call that you see at the bottom in the center of the slide. And this second open call is looking for experiments for our third wave, meaning that the first wave of experiments consisting of 7 experiments already finished. We are currently running the second wave of experiments comprising of 7 experiments. And now we are opening our call for the third wave. And again, we would like to support and co-fund and develop 7, maybe 8 application experiments that are cross-border and that not only will bring benefits to the experiments, but that shall also show and contribute to the matureness of the Cloudifacturing solution and validate our technology. Additionally, these experiments are supposed to generate customers for our digital marketplace and to achieve multiplying and achieving a critical mass of stakeholders for our digital marketplace. So before detailing more on the application experiments, I'd like to spend one slide on the digital marketplace, and I'd like to draw your attention first of all to the right-hand side. So the digital marketplace of Cloudifacturing is not just a platform to try to be a marketing channel for the results of the experiments. It is also, and as important, it's a community building platform where we invite all experiment partners, all digital innovation hubs, but also the research organizations, value-added resellers, our software vendors, to become part of the community, grow the community, and generate this network where you can find collaboration partners and expertise from others that will also bring you forward in the future. And so the marketplace part of it will provide the services that are developed within the experiments, but also in addition within the accompanying core Cloudifacturing project, the technology stack that we provide, helping to ease cloudifying, for instance, your already existing applications. Exploit them via the marketplace. So there is this exploitation path, marketing path, service as a service provisioning part in it, but then there is also, and we think it's as important, the community part, the community building part. So these, I think, indicate some of the benefits that you will get from participating to the marketplace. And in turn, we are asking you to bring your ICT solution resulting from the experiment to the marketplace, and multiplying the effects that you create for your end user via the marketplace to other end users. So you will create impact beyond the one end user that is expected to participate in the experiment, and create a larger access to the market, and expecting also more end users, potential customers in the future for the technology that you, especially as an as an independent software vendor or as a value-added reseller, have contributed to the marketplace. And the conditions and the details of the commercialization, being it direct or indirect, are being worked out as part of the experiment in collaboration between Cloudifacturing competence centers and the experiment partners. So if you have looked into the open call from last year, you will see that there are some accompanying activities that Cloudifacturing partners conducting with the experiment partner, and the commercialization dimension is one of those ones, and it's a very important one. Okay, let's come to the application experiments. And as I mentioned, we have already 2 waves. In the first wave, we have had experiments about optimizing the production of electric drives. We've had one experiment aiming at improving the production process of boats, namely the resin infusion process. And so this has been simulated by advanced simulation, multi-disciplinary things where computational fluid dynamics and structural mechanics went hand in hand to provide meaningful physics and proper simulation results, so that the boat manufacturer could rely on them. Another thing was about using big data analytics in for parts of electro-hydraulic valves. And here it was about big data analysis, etc., etc. We have had one experiment on modeling and simulating heat treating processes in steel and aluminum production. We have had one in optimizing the oven in which solar panels are baked, and then one for truck components where the manufacturing processes have been optimized, again based on big data analytics. And last but not least, one for improving food packaging by discrete event simulation of food packaging production lines. So those experiments brought and will bring within a year to 5 years perspective new products, increased turnover predicted by the companies involved here in the range up to 8.5 million euros, increased employment of up to 60 persons, new contacts, new partners, partners in new countries, and more efficient business processes, reduction of time to market, and or improved customer satisfaction. So in the second wave, which we have started a few months ago, we are again addressing 7 application experiments. One is in flow forming. We are doing one in the automation of personalized safety protection clothing. Then we have one on thermoelastic injection molding for hard metal tools. We have one experiment where we again use multi-sensorial data from the shop floor for optimizing manufacturing. Then there is one experiment which involves finite element analysis that is about matching actual manufactured shapes with predicted simulation behavior to reduce the scrap rate of the manufacturing processes and use products even if they are close to the, let's say, to the limits, to the bounds of the tolerances. We have one more on optimization of metal structures, and then we have one that combines fog computing with digital twins for laser-based manufacturing, using again the data that is stemming from these laser-based manufacturing systems to build up a digital model to predict maintenance and to proactively control the machinery to produce better quality. And here you see the logos of all these partners that are involved in the second wave of experiments. They are all contracted as third parties, so you may have seen this term, and we are run through the process of how to contract them, being third parties. So this is again EC specific terminology, and here is what they have predicted. So again, new products and services in the order of magnitude of 50, increased turnover up to 45 millions, increasing of employment rate for new jobs in these companies based on the results of the experiments and their future further developments, new contacts and partners in new countries, and again, improved business processes, new marketing channels, software as a service, cloud-based services. All these these companies see as additional opportunities complementary to their current PR and marketing channels. Reduced time to market, especially for the products being the final products or the production machines, and this all contributes to improvement of customer satisfaction. So, why shall you consider participating? Well, the experiments offer a unique opportunity to experiment with cloud and HPC-based computing. So you can gather experience what works well for you in your use cases. You can explore the technical benefits and better assess which is the right way to go for you, being it the HPC route or the cloud route. You have a chance to actually optimize your production processes, contributing to the producibility of the goods. And you can also, and you shall, exploit the information contained in factory data. So information discovery by having a better insight and look into the data that's coming from these processes. So it offers an opportunity to assess cloud-based business, let's say, strategies and their impact, leverage the digital marketplace I was talking about earlier as a complementary distribution channel. So none of the experiments is kind of forced to give up on the existing marketing channels. Of course, we cannot ask for that, but we see a good and a valuable complementary distribution channel in our marketplace, and the experiments require to explore this. So there is no way for you to kind of get around our digital marketplace. It's really important for both of us, for you and for us, to show that the experiment results are sustainable and they will reach a bigger market, and companies that have not been involved in experiments so far have a digital marketplace as a landing page, a one-stop shop where they can contact you and us if they have similar problems or even dissimilar problems, and ask for help and support to solve them. Of course, then without the funding of the Cloudifacturing project. So this is kind of a means to create additional revenue for you and for us in the future. So with this involvement, you will also participate in the H2020 ecosystem. And for these selected experiments, there is some funding, approximately 700,000 euros for 7 experiments. So we plan to spend roughly 100K per experiment. What does the Cloudifacturing solution provide? Well, we have a vendor-independent cloud platform, so you can select and decide on some cloud provider that is not predefined by Cloudifacturing. So this independent platform avoids vendor lock-in. It's very important. important if you have been working with clouds before. We have generated for you tailored access to different cloud and HPC resources. So you have ways to access them via the solution without being confronted or faced with too many technical details when using them or when selecting them. Yeah, there is visibility through participating in Cloudifacturing, and via Cloudifacturing also participating in key European events. This international network, I have already stressed it enough, I think. The exploitation via the Cloudifacturing marketplace, I also mentioned several times. And besides the consultancy and the co-working on cloud-based business models, we also accompany the experiments when it comes to requirements and human factors. So we are selecting requirements at the beginning of the experiment, and at the end of the experiment we help you evaluating the experiment with regards to the selected requirements, being them technical or non-technical requirements. So this is also meant with the independent validation. There is one partner, namely University of Nottingham, which is heading these activities and collaborating with experiment partners on them. And we will bring all our collected experience from more than 35 experiments into our third wave, from which I think you will benefit immediately. So what do you need to do? Of course, you have to propose an application experiment, and then second hurdle is you have to get selected. And the selection process is organized as transparently and as fair as possible. So we are running it with independent external experts. It's not Cloudifacturing alone that is selecting the best experiments. We lay down our criteria. It's part of the proposal template, and we involve for each proposal 2 independent experts and 1 expert from within Cloudifacturing who is mainly assessing the feasibility. So what is an application experiment? An application experiment is an innovative idea, you can also say use case, that is addressing a real challenge in your current production process or production development process. So this requires that we have a manufacturing company as a partner of the experiment consortium, which is being worked at. So this is the use case being posed by the end user, and this use case is addressed. The outcome to this challenge shall create real impact, and it should be doable. So as I said before, it's not about high-risk research. It is a challenge in the company, but it can be addressed, and it's likely to be solved within 1 year time, and it can create real impact, real value for the company. And that's being stated and discussed within your proposal. So the use cases shall simulate manufacturing processes or manufacturing tools, leverage from factory data and learn from it, either for the simulation stage or for the evaluation stage, and by doing that optimize manufacturing processes and or the producibility of the things being manufactured in the production lines. So for fulfilling the requirements, we need to talk a little bit about the consortium, the consortia. The consortia shall be small. Per experiment, we recommend 2 to 5 partners. The 2 is a must. This is the minimum amount of partners. And this is an end user from the manufacturing sector and an independent software vendor. And the software that is simulating, oops. Can you still see my slides?
Yes, it is. Mabek.
Okay. Because I was kind of, set off for a second. In addition, you can bring engineering or software consultants, value-added resellers, research organizations, HPC providers, or digital innovation hubs. For the latter two, we already have partners that you can make use of, but you can consider bringing your own. If you do so, you need to have a good justification and you have to write it up into your proposal. One word concerning the simulation software being used for the experiment. It shall pre-exist. So we are reluctant to accept experiments that start without the software being in existence. The software can exist as a desktop tool that needs to be cloudified, or in other ways, but if you start on the green field without any pre-existing software, considering the amount of funding, considering the timeline, it's pretty tough to achieve the experiment running result, etc. So then you have to carefully argue and convince us with your proposal that you're going to make it. Okay, there are some criteria and constraints. One I already mentioned. So the minimum partners in an experiment is 2. It's 1 end user and 1 ISV, 1 independent software vendor, or a value-added reseller. So imagine you would work with an open source simulation tool, then you may have a value-added reseller that is using this open source tool, which is kind of generic. It's implementing the simulation models with it. And then this VAR can be the second partner in your experiment consortium, in addition to the end user. The consortium must be cross-border. That is a requirement being imposed on us by the European Commission. That means that parties must be located in 2 different European countries, or in better words, 2 different countries eligible for funding. And our DIA, just in case that you don't have matching partners, may be able to help you finding some. We appreciate a high participation rate of SMEs and mid-caps. Mid-caps are companies with up to 1,000 employees. So if you have to select your partners and you have the choice between selecting an SME or selecting a large company, your preferences should be on SMEs. And the Cloudifacturing technology should be new to you. So it should not be just a replication of an experiment you may have already done in a different framework. For instance, other projects that run in the I4MS umbrella. There are many. Cloud SME, Cloudflow has been 2 of them. There are others like Fortissimo, etc. So please tell us in the proposal why this experiment is still an experiment to you. What is the new facets about it, so that make it believable that there is something new in it that you have not done before. In this open call, and that's different from the last one, there is a new rule, and that says that funding will not be awarded to individual legal entities that have already received more than 100,000 euros via open calls from H2020, IFORM-S, and SAE projects. SAE stands for Smart Anything Everywhere. And if you have been a third party in other IFORM-S projects or other SAE projects, and you have already received 100,000 euros or close to 100,000 euros, then you can only ask for the remaining bits in our open call. So assume you have already received 80K, then you can ask for 20, but not more than that. So be careful if you apply for repetitive times to these open calls. We have to exclude you if you have already received that amount of money. It's a new rule being introduced into the process last year after our first open call. So what is the timeline? The call will open officially by 1st of July, and it will be open for 3 months. Yes, there is vacation time, but it should give you plenty of time to prepare the proposal, as the proposal template only allows for 10 pages long proposals. The selection process with independent experts is planned to happen within October, November 2019. We hope to sign the contracts by end of December. At least we have an agreement with the 7 proposals to be funded by end of September. Signature of contracts may have some latency, so we have to see. Start of experiments is planned for January 2020, and the experiments will last for 1 year. And over this 1 year time period, we will meet each other sometimes, and we will accompany you along the duration of the experiment. So further information you can get from our webpage, www.cloudifacturing.eu. You probably be interested in knowing what's going on in the current experiments, and you have a link that is summarizing all wave 1 experiments. You have a link that is summarizing the ongoing wave 2 experiments, and the experiments are expected to be orthogonal to the ongoing experiment. So don't repeat what others have already done. Otherwise, we are being criticized by the European Commission that we spend their money, our taxpayers' money, to fund the same thing twice, or things that look similar twice. So please make sure where you are different and how you are different in your proposals. There are important documents, and actually these are 5 of them. So it's the guide for applicants, it's the proposal template, the model contract, it's a short technical description, and then there is an official call text. Those are all documents that you can download. You can already have a look into last year's docs. This year's documents will be uploaded end of June, beginning of July. And when I'm done with my presentation, Tamas will walk you through these documents so that you have a better understanding of what they are talking about. Yes, well, so next thing, after Tamas' presentation, you are allowed to ask any question you like, and we are encouraging you to collaborate with our digital innovation hubs. The digital innovation hubs are put in place to collaborate with you in the process of creating good proposals. They will not write the proposal for you. That's not the intention. However, they give you hints and tips, and they will guide you and they'll tell you what's important to be part of your proposal. And not only in the proposal writing phase, the DIHs will accompany you. The DIHs also have the task to guide you through the experiment once they have started. So this is a list of the currently involved digital innovation hubs with all the names and emails to contact you. We have a spread over Europe, so it's natural that you contact the digital innovation hub that is most closely to you, but this is not a must. We just recommend it. And the DIHs are talking to each other. They have their own networks, so they will help you get in touch with the right people at the right time. Well, with this, I'd like to hand over to Tamas so that he can walk you through the supporting documents that are really, really important to be read and to be digested by the experiment proposers. With having said this, I'd like to thank you already for taking part, and I'm curious to listen to your questions after Tamas' presentation. Thank you, and I'll stay in the conference, so curious to see what's going on next. Tamas, then it's your turn to go through the documents.
Okay, thank you very much, Andre. I believe that you are already able to see my screen. If not, then please let me know.
Can we see your screen, Tamas?
You can see.
Yes, now.
Okay, good. So I will try to be relatively quick because I think it would be good to have plenty of time for questions as well. But as Andre mentioned, I would like to go through very quickly the supporting documentation and important documents which we are going to publish on the website that are supporting the open call, and which provide you all the information which you need in order to participate, in order to learn about the project, and in order to write a high-quality proposal. Now, regarding this one, as also Andre mentioned, the latest version of those documents are currently being worked at, and they will be published at the beginning of July. So we expect it to be published around next week or so. And they will give you the exact details for the second open call. However, if you have a look at the documentation, which I'm going to show you now, which are coming from the first open call, then the difference will be obviously not very substantial. In some cases, it may be, and I'm going to highlight those differences as well. So first of all, one of the most important documents, and I think that is where you really have to start with, is a guide for applicants. Okay, so this is what you can see on my screen now. And this guide for applicants is a relatively long document. So at the moment, it is about 20 pages. And this gives you all the details, what you need to know about the open call. And I think most of these Andre have touched on or mentioned, but obviously you can find much more detailed information about the rules, about the participation, about our expectations, what kind of experiments we are expecting, and what is the evaluation process, how we evaluate the experiments, how we select the experiments, and how the funding and costing and so on will go on. Obviously, I'm not going to read out the document, but as I said, this is a very detailed documentation which includes all the necessary details, and we very, very much suggest that you start here and you read through this guide for applicants, because this can clarify all the necessary things which you need to know. Now, obviously, even after reading this document, if you have problems or if you have questions, then there are several ways how you can pursue those. First of all, also Andre mentioned that we strongly encourage you to make immediate contact with one of our digital innovation hubs, whose contact can be found also in this document, but also in the slides which were presented today. And they are very happy to guide you and help you further in the process. And obviously, you can contact the project directly as well, and we are also very happy to help you. But we encourage you that your first primary contact point should be the Digital Innovation Hub you are working with. And in your proposal, you also have to name that Digital Innovation Hub who you have been collaborating with during the proposal stage. Okay, so this is one of the important documents. Now, the second one, which I would like to take your attention for, is the application template. So this is a proposal template, which we are again going to publish in a little bit updated form. It will be very, very similar to the previous one, but we are fixing a few things which we have learned during the first wave of the experiments. And what you need to do is that you have to complete this template when you are applying for the call. I believe most of the aspects in the template are quite obvious, and we also provide detailed explanations. So here, for example, you can see that there are several comments which are explaining in full detail what kind of information and in what format we want from you. I also mentioned that you have to name in this proposal which Digital Innovation Hub you have been collaborating with, so that will be a very important information for us. And after that one, obviously the actual content part of the proposal will come. Now, regarding the content of the proposal, in every section you will find page limits. And please keep these page limits very, very strictly. We are not going to evaluate anything which is beyond these page limits. So, for example, when it says industrial relevance, maximum 2 pages, then anything which is beyond those 2 pages limit will be ignored, or the evaluators will be asked to ignore that information. So whatever you provide, you have to squeeze it into the page limits very, very strictly. And again, those will be enforced. Obviously, you can delete your instructions, so that does not count towards the 2-page limit. So please delete those instructions before submitting your proposal, but you have to fit into the page limits. Now, there are some tables, for example, which in this particular format we would like you to complete. In Andre's presentation, you have seen that each experiment provided predictive numbers for key performance indicators like enhanced products and services, new employment, increase in turnover, and so on. These numbers should be provided in the proposal for every participating organization. So we would like to see what is your prediction based on your plans, that what kind of key performance indicators you would like to achieve. Second aspect is dissemination and exploitation strategy. Again, very important. Because we would like to see that you exploit your results on the long term, and you actually not just conduct the experiment, but on the long term you make significant advantage out of that. After that one, you have to explain your experiment design, how your experiment will be designed, and what are your plans of this design process. And then you have to, again, in a slightly longer length, in maximum 2 pages, you have to describe your technical approach. So you have to explain us what is the technical feasibility of your proposal, what kind of resources you are planning to use, how those resources are going to support your experiment. We are very specifically looking for application experiments that require cloud or high-performance computing resources. So you must justify why your experiment computation cannot be done, for example, on a workstation, why you need a cloud or HPC resource, and what is that computational need which you need to support and solve with these particular resources. Next step, you have to provide a work plan. This is very similar if you are familiar with European funding proposals. then but in a much more condensed form, you have to explain your activities, which partner is leading that activity, what is the estimated person months for that activity, when do you start, when do you finish your experiment. So you have to provide a very detailed work plan for your experiment, including milestones and including internal deliverables. So that is the kind of formal plan of your experiment, and then you have to estimate that how much financial resources will be required for that. And again, this is in a very similar format how those of you who have been participating in EU project got used to. If not, then again, there is detailed explanation at the bottom of this page what the different aspects mean. So you have to provide estimated numbers, and you have to provide an overall figure for the experiment. Here we provided already guidelines that overall we have 700,000 euros or so to support the experiments. We are planning to support at least 7 experiments, so probably a kind of reasonable upper limit for a particular experiment could be 100,000 euros. But obviously the kind of feasibility from the financial point of view and the research point of view and value for money is also one of the aspects of the evaluation criteria. So you have to be careful here, because obviously we can say that yes, that is probably above the kind of financial limits which we can support. And finally, you have to describe the consortium itself in maximum half a page per partner. We gave 2 pages for this, and this is again the generic information about the partner, what that partner is doing, what is their profile, what is their role in the experiment, and who are the key persons who are participating in that experiment, and also like contact details and so on. So this is more or less the core part of the template, and then following this one, because of ethical EU ethical requirements, we have an ethics questionnaire which we ask you to complete. Again, this should be relatively straightforward, but if you answer yes to any of these ethical issue questions, then you have to provide some further information regarding how you are going to tackle those. It's not necessarily a problem, obviously, so it is not ruling out your experiment, but if ethical issues are raised, then you have to have a clear plan and ideas how these ethical issues will be handled and tackled in an acceptable form. So we ask all partners to complete this ethical questionnaire. If the answer for every question is no, then you have no further actions. If you find anything where the answer is yes, then you have to provide us further details. And finally, and I think this is again very important, is the assessment criteria and the assessment form. So I already explained that there are 7 different aspects of the evaluation criteria, and each of these will be marked between a mark of 0 to 5. First, the individual evaluators, 2 external experts and 1 internal from the project, are going to mark individually your project, and then they will come to a consensus. And then they will give you 1 single mark for each of the aspects of the criteria. And then it will result in a final mark, and the ranking of the experiments will be based on this final mark. Now, what is very important is that not all aspects have the same weight. So, for example, industrial relevance is carrying a weight of 4. So that means that whatever mark you receive for this particular part, how relevant your experiment is from the industrial point of view, that will be multiplied by 4. And that's, I think, very important, because if you score low for this particular aspect, then that has a very, very strong effect on your final score. And also we have a threshold of 3 for this particular aspect. So proposals which are scoring under 3 in these aspects will be automatically out of the selection. Now, all the other aspects have a weight of 1, so that means that they will be added to the overall score as they are. So this is the dissemination and exploitation, experiment design, technical approach, quality of the work plan, resource utilization, and also the appropriateness of the consortium. And after that one, as I explained, the overall mark will be calculated. And again, for the overall mark, we have a threshold of 30 out of the 50 possible marks. So if an experiment scores under 30 marks, that is again cannot be funded because that did not reach the threshold. And there is one more important aspect, is that at most 2 categories can only be below 3 points, not including obviously 1 industrial relevance, which already has a threshold. So out of the other 6, only 2 of the aspects could be scored below 3 marks. And then the selection will be based on the ranking coming out of this evaluation. So I think this was probably the document which I wanted to explain in most detail. And just very briefly, going through the other aspects or the other documents which we are going to publish. So first of all, there will be a relatively short 2-page document which provides you with the most important facts of the call. So these are going to detail the deadlines, the funding aspects, the most important rules, expectations towards new experiments, consortia requirements, and so on. So this is just a short summary. Please be careful that not everything is included in this 2-page document. But obviously, if you would like to refer to something which is shorter and more compact than the guide for applicants, that again, this is something which you can have a very quick look. But again, be careful because some details you may have to refer to the guide of experiments. The next document, and again, this is very important for you to have a look, is that, as Andre already mentioned, we are going to contract all successful partners from the open call as third parties to the project. And these third parties must sign a third-party agreement with the coordinator entity, that is Fraunhofer. And we already we will publish the text of this, the kind of draft text or the skeleton text of this third-party agreement. So please have a look at this and be 100% sure that legally you can accept this agreement, because after you select it, there will be no way to change the text of this agreement. So please check with your legal departments that this is something which you can sign up for, because this will be the third-party agreement which you must sign after acceptance, and there will be no way of major kind of modifications of this. Obviously, there are things in this template which you have to complete, but otherwise the core text of the third-party agreement is fixed, and we cannot change that. So that's why we publish it, that you must be aware of this before you apply for the call. And finally, there is another document, and this one I'm not going to even show the actual content of this at the moment, because this is something which is going to change very significantly. And this is technical information for the open call. So this describes the Cloudifacturing platform and solution, and the reason why it is different from the one which we published for the first open call, because obviously in the last year our platform evolved very significantly. So you will be in a slightly better position than the previous application experiments, because now by the time you join the project, you will work on a much more mature and stable platform than the previous application experiments had to work with. But obviously, it also means that this technical information which we provide you about the platform, that is significantly different. Now, why you need to have a look at this? Because obviously one of the aspects which you are looking for, whether your application experiment is feasible on the Cloudifacturing platform and whether it can be implemented on top of the platform. And that is the reason why you provide you with this technical information to judge it, to assess it. And obviously during the preparation phase through our DI ages, we are very, very happy to provide you further information or to clarify any questions which you have regarding this. But obviously, as I explained, this will be one of the very important aspects of the evaluation criteria. Now, I think this is where I'm going to finish. So just to leave again a significant time for the questions. If you got any questions regarding these documents also, I'm very happy to answer. As I said, you already find the ones which I shown you on our website under the first open call, and the new updated ones will be available very, very soon under the second open call. So after that point, you can download the proposal template and you can start actually working on the preparation of the proposal. So thank you very much for your attention. And I think now both Andre and I will be very happy to take questions which you have.
Yeah, actually, yes. However, I have one small comment to make concerning the third-party agreement. The third-party agreement has only or just 23 pages. So compared to the full agreement of the European Commission, this is rather compact. And all the important paragraphs are appendices to this model contract. So these appendices are Appendix 2, starting at page 16. So you don't need to read all the EC contracts that you may know from being a beneficiary. However, this contract complies to the so-called DESCA model. So there is no contradiction to the EC models involved in here. This is as fair as possible with all the experience from Fraunhofer being in it. Fraunhofer has done more than 1,000 European projects in Framework 7 alone. So our lawyers have really put all their thoughts in. So it should be acceptable. If this is not acceptable for you, no EC grant would be acceptable for you. But please read it carefully. As Tamas said, once you are selected, you have to sign this contract or you have to drop out of the experiment. So there is then no space for negotiating this model contract. Okay, so now open for the Q&A session.
Just one more very quick comment. I have been just reminded by your Funding Box colleagues that there will be a question and answer session on the 5th of July at 12 noon, where I will answer all your questions regarding the call. If you start working on the proposal early, then please join this particular session and I will be online and I will answer all your questions that you have. And as Andre mentioned, we are now open for taking any questions.
So I didn't look into the chat while you were talking, but so people need to unmute.
I see one question popping up in the chat window just now, so maybe we can start with that one. So this question sounds that, does the proposal need to address a manufacturing process optimization? Can it address design process? after all, it is part of manufacturing. Our partner uses lots of wind tunnel runs for the design process. We would like to set up a digital wind tunnel. It would significantly decrease the design cost. I don't know, Andre, whether you would like to answer this, or shall I have a go? I think both of you. Okay, so the answer is that for this particular project and for this particular call, we are very specifically concentrating on the manufacturing process itself. So if you know the history of this project, you know that there have been, in the first wave of I4MS, 3 projects running. One was coordinated by Andre, the other one was coordinated by myself, and the third one was Fortissimo. And in those projects, a lot of application experiments concentrated on product design. And because of this particular reason, we have decided that for this project, we would like to go beyond that. And although that's a very important and very interesting problem, but because that has been addressed already in the past by several application experiments, we definitely would like to support the manufacturing process itself. So the answer is that we are looking for, very specifically looking for application experiments where the manufacturing process is supported. And if in a proposal this is not the case and the proposal only supports product design, then that proposal will not be eligible for funding, and that will not be even considered when we shortlist the potential proposals.
There's probably only one exception. If the wind tunnel itself would have to be optimized as part of producing better, more aerodynamic goods, then that would make the story probably a little bit different.
But in this case, it needs to be very, very, very clearly articulated.
Yeah.
I think that's very important, that you need to explain how it supports the manufacturing process. And that needs to be put very clearly, because we should not really second guess.
Yeah, sure. No, they have to state it. There was one partner from Turkey in the chat at 12:35. There was the question if partners from Turkey can participate in the open call, and yes, they can. Okay, Tamas has answered this already.
There was another question in the chat window which says that inside the proposal we can delete all instructions in order to have more space for our text. I think I have already answered it during my talk, and the very, very clear answer is yes. So please delete all instructions. That's just we included them. You don't need that in the final proposal. Optimize it for space. And just include your answers. We know obviously the instructions, so those does not have to be part of your answer.
Yeah. Then there was a question in the chat concerning the funding exclusion. All I can say is what I put on the slide is a citation of the European Commissioner. So this is the literal statement. And with that, framework program 7 funding would not be considered as being part of the 100K rule.
Okay, I would like to pick up another question from the chat window. And the question is that what about if you have a similar manufacturing process, for example, injection thermoplastic, and we use specialized polymer material and not hard metal? Well, the answer is that, as Andre mentioned, we are keen on supporting different types of proposals. If this is similar to an experiment which we already had, then we would be very much interested in the kind of significantly different nature of that experiment. So for example, I imagine that this uses a different software, at least, and if it uses a different software by a different vendor, then it may have different requirements in order to support, and obviously the actual manufacturing process could be different. If there is very, very significant overlap, so for example, if you could very easily use the same simulation software which already has been put into the Cloudifacturing platform, then I think the advice would be is rather to talk to that particular vendor once the solution is fully operational on the marketplace, and then you can utilize that particular software for your purposes, because again, doing something overlapping with the previous waves of experiments, that may not be the best idea. But if this is very significantly different, and if you use a different software, a different process, then it definitely can be considered.
Maybe one addition to this. Sometimes it's hard to see whether it's similar or dissimilar by just knowing the title of the experiment. If you have in your experiment idea, write it down on half a page, get in touch with the digital innovation hubs, with them having a better understanding on what you want to do. We can internally discuss to which extent we think this may be similar or dissimilar. So this I think, to do this early in the process, early in July, this will give all a better basis for decisions than saying the title sounds similar, so it must be similar. So there is kind of shades of gray in between, and use the possibility that you have to get in touch with us. Draft your idea. You don't need to fill the 10 pages and spend all this effort in vain. Half a page may probably do to better assess how to where are overlaps with our experiments, since we know them very, very well.
Okay, one other question is that is HPC use needed for the project? Does a project with HPC involvement increase the chance to get accepted? Now the answer for this one is cloud or HPC. Okay, so there are some slight differences between the two. So for example, you use HPC if you got a complex calculation which requires inter-process communication and requires very significant amount of resources, and you use cloud computing if you still need large computation time or large data access, but in a slightly more loosely coupled way. Now, using one of these is a must in the proposal. So if your experiment does not require either cloud or HPC, then your experiment very unlikely to be accepted. Well, I would say it will definitely not be accepted, because we want proposals which do use cloud or HPC resources. Which one is required for your experiment, that is not a preference. So you will not be more likely to accept it if you use HPC than if you use cloud. That's not necessarily an issue. Or it may not be known at the beginning of the experiment which type of resource is required for your experiment. But we definitely want experiments which requires large computational or data storage and data processing capacity. And those which can be done just with a local PC, that's not in the scope of this particular code.
Yeah, then there is a question that says, this also applies to aeroacoustics. So I think since this posed directly after the design question, this is about using aeroacoustic simulation in the design. And yes, again, if this is purely about product design, then this is not a Cloudifacturing experiment. If it is about aeroacoustics for production machines, or aeroacoustics has some effect on producing something first time right, then it can be considered as an experiment. A final judgment is hard to be given just on the basis of this question.
Okay, so next question is, can an experimental verification be funded? For example, very often simulations need to be validated with some experimental measurements. These would have to be carried out within the project. The answer is yes, definitely. We had application experiments where the simulation results have been validated in real production environments, and this is very much welcome and very much encouraged. Obviously, this needs to be fit inside your budget. So this should be something which carries reasonable cost and which fits inside your budget, and it needs to be explained, obviously, what are you actually going to do in the validation process. But this is allowed, and this is very much welcome in the application experiments.
Yeah, maybe we should even stress it more. This is encouraged. So we want to have proof that the simulation has shown benefits in your overall process.
Next question is that can we present 2 projects to this call at the same time? The answer is yes, definitely. So you are entitled to hand in as many proposals as you wish to hand in. But obviously they will be competing with each other, and they will be competing with the others, and the overall funding rules will also apply. So if it is exactly the same partners, then you may reduce your chances for both experiments to be accepted because of the individual funding limits of one particular partner.
Then there is a question from IMR Ireland. They are a DIH, and they are asking which route we recommend to seek partners. And then Lisa N is leaving her email address. Probably this is something that she wants to discuss with us offline. Maybe a general statement here. We have 5 DIH. Partners can bring their new DIH, but we have to have justification why this DIH brings an added value to our project. What we don't have yet is a DIH in Great Britain, nor in Ireland, which is part of it. So this is maybe worthwhile to being considered.
Okay, so there is a question which I would like to pick up. I'm not sure. Well, we can see how we can answer this, but the question is that optimization is mentioned in several manufacturing cases. This, however, may have different contexts and size of scope. Where can we find information to verify that other potential optimization cases for manufacturing are eligible? For example, multi-constraint planning, scheduling for sustainable manufacturing operations. I give my answer, and then Andre may want to extend that. So there is no limitation that what kind of optimization case you suggest, until it is within the scope of the call and of the Cloudifacturing project. So if you optimize manufacturing processes, then the actual method how that optimization is carried out is not determining whether you are eligible or whether you are not eligible for the call. What determines it whether the optimization requires significant amount of data and computational resources, and whether it requires cloud or HPC computational support, and whether it supports the optimization of the manufacturing process itself. But otherwise, from the optimization point of view, we do not really care what optimization technique you are using. And if you are using something which other experiments did not use, that is even an advantage and definitely not a disadvantage.
Yeah.
I don't know whether Andre you would like to add anything to this.
No, I don't think there is anything that can be added. Yeah, okay, and then it's again about wind tunnel tests and reducing wind tunnel tests. That's hard for me to comment on that. So please write half a page that we can have a better basis on giving you comments on this idea of having aeroacoustic simulation to reduce wind tunnel tests. If this is accelerating the production or the producibility, it may be an eligible idea, but it's tough to tell from the amount of information that we have so far.
So I would say that if you bring in another partner which uses these wind tunnels for actual production processes, and then those production processes are optimized through the design of the wind tunnel, then it is a better case. But that may be very hard, I believe, to find.
Yeah. Yeah, that would kind of mean that the wind tunnel per se is being optimized.
So in that case, the wind tunnel is the manufacturing tool, and then another company, which is the end user, uses this particular tool for optimizing some kind of manufacturing processes. But I see this, but I'm not sure whether this is something which you have in mind. If you just optimize the production or the design of the wind tunnels, I think that proposal will be regarded as ineligible. I see one more question which says that is the reduction of the actual tests that adds to the production development cost? Sorry, I don't fully understand this. So is the reduction of the actual tests that adds?
This is a comment to the thing above.
All right. Yes, so, I of a previous question.
Yeah.
Tamas, this is Lucy from Funding Box.
Yes.
Yeah, just if there are no other questions, I just would like to remind, like you said before, that there will be a question and answer session on the 5th of July, and it will be as a chat on the I4MS community. So for everyone, if after this webinar you go through the call and through the documents that Tamas showed and you still have questions after this, you can join this question and answer session. Me and my colleague Lily, we posted the link on the chat, and we will anyway remind you with an email. So it will be a chat session on the I4MS community, and you will have all the information on the link from the event.
And there will be another question and answer session sometimes in September, if I'm correct, which is much closer to the closing date of the call. Yes.
Yeah.
And there was one more question from the participants, whether the presentation slides will be sent to their emails. So is this something which Funding Box will take care of?
Yes, the presentation and the recording of the webinar will be sent as well.
Thank you.
And it will be published on the website as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just it's been put into the chat window that the date of the second question and answer session will be the 13th of September. So that will be 2 weeks before the close close of the call. And then again, if you got any final minute questions, then I will be able to answer those.
Okay, Tamas and Andre, I think we can close this webinar now if there are no more questions. Thank you so much for your presentation and your answers.
You're welcome. Thanks everybody for participating and for your preparation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the attention and your participation.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.